Thank you so much for having me. Great introduction. I'm excited to be here today. So you gave a really good overview. I don't even know if I need to do this presentation now. I'm joking. I'm still here. I'm also starting my timer because I know we are on a tight 20 minutes. So I want to make sure I'm respectful of y'all's time and everybody else's time. So my name is Erin Glaccum. I've been at the organization for just over 6 years. I am the prevention program strategist. So like Maria said, I primarily work behind the scenes, creating relationships with our larger stakeholders. I met Karen a few years ago when I was partnering with the Minnesota Department of Health in conjunction with the Minnesota Department of Human Services to create some funding structures to get Not a Number to their communities all across the state of Minnesota. So that's largely what I do. I also, second slide is perfect. I also do a lot of work with our professional, our youth serving professional who have been trained in Not a Number and getting them up to speed, getting them comfortable to implement Not a Number in their own communities. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I am currently in Tennessee. So it is also very hot here. I think we're pushing 100 again today. It's a real bummer, but I'm excited to be with y'all. So a little bit about the organization. So Love 146, you're good on slide 2. So I'm not going to read to you. Y'all can read. Yes, but a little bit about Love 146, the organization. So we are an international human rights organization focused on ending child trafficking. We've been doing this work for just over 20 years now. And when we began to do this work, we did start in Asia, specifically in the Philippines, where we still do work today. In the Philippines, we have 2 safe homes, one for boys, one for girls, because we quickly saw that the girls we were serving also had siblings or friends in the community who were also experiencing exploitation at similar rates. So we have those 2 safe homes where we work with confirmed survivors today. Since our inception, we have now expanded and we do work in the United States. We've been here probably for 15, 16, 17 years. We are headquartered in New Haven, Connecticut, where our survivor care team is housed. We work directly with the Connecticut Department of Children and Families, again, working with confirmed survivors of human trafficking to, shepherd them through the process, make sure they get the referrals and the opportunities that they need to restore themselves and get back into their community. And then the third part of our program or our organization is the prevention aspect. So while it is great to serve survivors and get them whole again, it is also important to keep kids from being victimized in the first place. We don't want anybody to be victimized ever. So we have our prevention arm, and that is largely what I'll speak to y'all today. So prevention, we've been doing this work for about 10 years. It is a North American, US-based program. We designed the Not a Number curriculum to be relevant for all kids ages 12 to 18. So it's relevant for boys, girls, and LGBTQ youth. We know all kids are vulnerable, so we wanted to make something that was as universal and as relevant to the kids that we were serving in our survivor care every day. It is relevant across the risk spectrum as well. It is primary prevention, so we are hopefully working with kids who have never had any experience with victimization or a human trafficking experience or an exploitation experience, but we know that's not always the case. And we have seen really good results working with kids who have those additional vulnerabilities and who have experienced victimization as well. So Not a Number is implemented in schools, in juvenile justice facilities, in residential treatment facilities, in community settings, literally anywhere that kids gather and there is a safe adult who has been trained in this program, the program can be implemented. It moves beyond traditional awareness. And so what that means to us is that it is it's not a 1-hour presentation. It is a 5-module program, and each module is an hour. We are building on the skills that we learned in the previous one. So while we talk about like what human trafficking is, dispel some of those myths, define some of those terms for the kids, we are also working on what is a healthy relationship. How do you trust your gut if you're having, second thoughts about something? We talk about consent. And then ultimately, by the end of the 5 modules, we are working on safety planning. It is not enough to tell and show kids what human trafficking is. We need to tell them and ask them and work with them. If you find yourself in this type of situation or something is starting to go wrong in your relationship, whatever type of relationship that is, who are the safe people that you can reach out to? Who are the resources that you can reach out to? And how can you keep yourself as safe as possible? It is research-based. So this just means we spent a lot of time on the forefront, making sure this made sense. We didn't go into this with just good intentions and a nice idea. We did that, but also we did a lot of research in the best practices in the field of prevention education, in the field of like child abuse prevention in particular, because I have a really big body of evidence. And then we worked with our partners at different universities to make sure it made sense. And then, yes, we integrate a holistic view by focusing on both the individual and the community pressures that may increase vulnerability, the society pressures that may increase vulnerabilities. Think the isms, all the isms you can think about. And we try to tackle those in our 5 modules together. You can go to the next slide. So I put this slide in here just to highlight some of the theories and models that the Not a Number curriculum is based off of, and our partners. So we worked very closely and continue to this day to work with the University of New Hampshire Crimes Against Children Research Center. They were the folks who we originally went to with our proposal and our curriculum, and they were like, this is not good enough. And we said, okay, thank you. Fix. We piloted it again. Took it to them, and they say, this is still not where it needs to be. And we said, fix. And we do this every 3 years. So we are committed to making sure the information is up to date, it is relevant, and is as applicable as possible to our kiddos, because we know traffickers and exploiters, they move quickly. And in the pandemic, we know like a lot of exploitation went online, which I'm sure you are aware about. So we did a rewrite, we made sure it made as much sense as possible. And now we are doing another rewrite. So you can move on. Thank you. Maria also read this earlier, but essentially we're working with kids to develop skills to help them make healthy decisions as much as possible. You can scroll on. Okay, I know y'all are experts on human trafficking. This is just a very quick, high-level, 1-slide overview of the definition, because we are coming from a US perspective. So you can scroll on. And this is what we do during trainings with our adults. We just want to make sure that everybody is coming to the table with the same common language, right? So in the US, again, I'm not going to read this to you. You can read it. In the US, the age that we are really, really concerned, if I can get your details. Yes, absolutely. I'll send all my details afterwards. The age that we focus on in the US is 18. So anybody can be a victim of human trafficking, but if you are under the age of 18, law enforcement, you person needs to prove force, fraud, and coercion. Or if you are under, you do not ever need to prove that if you are engaged in commercial sex. And again, commercial sex is the exchange of a sex act, stripping, pornography, prostitution, I say that with air quotes, for anything of value. Anything of value can be money in the traditional sense. It can be a place to stay. It can be drugs. It can be food. So if you're under the age of 18 and you are engaged in commercial sex, you are automatically a victim of human trafficking. If you are over the age of 18, you can be a victim of human trafficking, but you would just need to prove one of those 3 things. Labor trafficking is a little bit different. You always need to prove either force, fraud, or coercion, because if you are under the age of 18 in the US, you can work, you can have a job. But if you obviously are under the age of 18 in the US, you cannot engage in commercial sex. You can't decide you want to work in pornography, right? So you wouldn't ever need to prove that. I do want to note two things. Smuggling, not the same as trafficking. Smuggling is a crime against a nation. It's a crime against a border. So you might hear a lot about that, but it's not necessarily trafficking. It can turn into an exploitative and trafficking situation. It doesn't have to. And then survival sex. So when TVPA was reauthorized, it changed the definition of human trafficking ever so slightly, and it removed the need for there to be a third party present. So let's think a youth who is struggling with homelessness engages in sex to have a place to stay for the night. There is no third party necessarily present, but that survival sex for that basic need, that thing of value, a place to stay, is still considering trafficking and would fall under the umbrella. So those are the two nuances I just wanted to share with you. You can scroll to the next one. Okay, so now I'm going to get into two example activities for y'all. Like I said, the program is 5 modules. Each module is an hour. So we have a lot of activities, a lot of different case studies. But here are two examples. You can scroll down. So this is an example that we do pretty early on where we're trying to help kids define what trafficking is in a discovery-based learning way, other than just like giving them direction or the definition. So this is Sarah's story. Her best friend introduced them. Things got serious quickly. David asked Sarah to live with him after only a month. Sarah was nervous about it, but she figured it was better than her current situation. Her parents were strict and she never had any freedom. They gave her everything she wanted except for affection and praise. David gave her butterfly feelings every time she saw him. He told her she was beautiful, kind, and said he would do anything for her. You can scroll down. As soon as she moved in, David changed. He asked her to have sex with one of his friends. He acted like he felt really bad about it, but said that he owed some money and it would really help him out. Sarah didn't understand how David could be okay with her having sex with another guy, but she loved him and wanted to help. Afterwards, David told her how much he loved her. One more. Perfect. A few weeks went by before he asked for another favor. This time, he wanted her to have sex with a few strangers to help pay rent. When she said she didn't want to, he started yelling at her that she was stupid and was lucky that he was willing to take care of her. Sarah felt really bad because he had done so much for her. So she agreed. After that, David told her that this is how he expected her to pay for rent from now on. So this is an example of an accumulation of stories that we have received from survivors in our care, things like that, of how trafficking situations start. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves, what are some vulnerabilities that you think Sarah had that made it easier for David to take advantage of her?
I would say, for one, chaotic or unstable home life.
Yeah, at the very least, a little dysfunctional. She was definitely looking for something that her parents weren't giving her, right? The love, the attention, the affection. Yeah, and that could be that they were working a lot and they were just out of the home, or that, yeah, whatever that may be. Anybody?
He was giving her a place to live,
Yeah,
and she thought the security that went along with that. And she wanted to
absolutely.
trust. She didn't trust anybody. She had no self-confidence. And so this was her rationale, I would imagine, part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think those are both exactly right. So if you can scroll down, I've listed off some additional vulnerabilities, not for this case study in particular, but I would also say her age, right? Like she's an adolescent, like by nature of not having as much life experience, like that puts you in a vulnerable position, right? Being a woman, like inherently makes you just slightly more vulnerable because of the society that we live in. We don't know if she's a member of a marginalized population. But we know that marginalized populations, I'm thinking Black girls, LGBTQ plus youth, And people of color experience victimization, specifically in this way, at higher rates than their white and non-LGBTQ identifying youth, their counterparts. Things we often see, we see history of abuse and neglect. We see system involvement. So kids who are involved with the juvenile justice system or the foster care system in the US often have higher rates of victimization. So vulnerabilities are things that could be situational, but they could just also be because of the society and the culture that we live in. So we try to talk through these with youth over the course of the entire curriculum. And then we don't want to just focus on the vulnerabilities, but of course, tie those back to protective factors like you do have friends that support you. If you're enrolled in school, you have social workers and counselors at your school who can support you. Like there are safe people and really good resources in any community if you need them. Okay, and so we can scroll on. This is an example of another activity. So it's called Exploiter Profiles. It's a little bit longer than this, but just want to be mindful of time. So what we are working on in this activity is dispelling some of those common myths and misconceptions that kids have. I cannot tell you how often kids still say trafficking is like the movie Taken. It happens internationally. They don't think it happens here. And I know that movie it came out like 15 years ago. It's older than a lot of our kids, but that's still the one that they pinpoint. So we're working on dispelling some of those common myths and misconceptions. Yes, it can happen like it happened in Taken, I suppose, but it also looks the way Sarah's story just did, right? So I want us to scroll down to the next page, and we're going to try to identify the person who is an exploiter or a trafficker. Does anybody have any strong feelings about either of these two gentlemen?
I do, the one on the right.
The one on the right? You feel like you trust him, or you feel like you do not trust him?
I do not trust him.
Okay, got it. Okay. Anybody else have any strong feelings?
I think both of them just look like normal good guys, and both of them could very well be exploiters or traffickers.
Yeah, right. The first gentleman, he's in a suit, like he looks like a business person, and the second guy, he's military at the very least. Like, I don't know. Shouldn't we trust military? Okay, and we'll scroll.
Necessarily.
Thank you, Lisa. Fine on time. I practiced yesterday. And you can scroll down. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes, in general, it's very difficult to say how to be exploiter because in my case, I really don't know. Maybe both.
Right. Yeah. Okay. We'll scroll down to the next two and we'll see if we have any strong feelings about these two folks. So it looks like we have another businessman, looks professional. And then we have a high school cheerleader. So she's young.
I still say both.
You say both. Okay. Well,
I agree.
Kids.
Yeah. Definitely the cheerleader.
Definitely the cheerleader. Okay. Got it. Okay.
So Joan, sorry, Erin, but this is Karen. So when you have the cheerleader on the right, it's interesting because we just had a pretty big legal case in Minnesota where the head young man, 35 years old, who was the fundraising chair for our Republican Party, local Republican Party, recruited a young woman who was college age, but he recruited her to recruit young women from the college. And they both have just gotten convicted of sex trafficking. So to your point of Erin, your picture on the right, not maybe high school, but definitely college age young woman, beautiful young woman. And she's now in jail.
well, I'm glad to hear that she's in jail and justice was served.
Yes.
Yes. So y'all know more than our kids do because you're close to experts. But all of these people are convicted traffickers. Everybody in the activity, I think we have like 10 or so photos. They're all convicted. So Karen, if I can find some pictures of those folks who were just convicted, I'll probably put them in as we're doing our rewrite. So the first gentleman who was in a suit, I think he's a pastor, and he exploited people within his congregation. The military man, he was military. I think he might have been in the reserves or something like that. But yeah, he was also convicted of trafficking. So was this businessman, and so is the high schooler. So this high school cheerleader is from Minnesota. And yeah, she trafficked and put one of her teammates who had a learning disability. That was my timer. On a Backpage, when Backpage existed. So all of them are convicted traffickers. So the point of this activity is to obviously highlight that anybody can be an unsafe person, and for us as young people and adults to trust our gut, right? If something feels like it's getting off in your relationship, again, whether that's a relationship with a pastor, a relationship with a friend, a family member, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, to trust yourself. You can scroll down. Yes, if we cannot always recognize an exploiter, how will youth be able to? You can keep moving. So I just wanted to highlight this really quick, Minnesota specific work, just because we do a lot of work, and that's, how I met Karen and got invited, I think, to this presentation. One of the things I want to highlight is that Minnesota has been doing some really exciting work. They did this student youth survey. You may have seen it because it came out in 2019, but they just redid it in 2022. But essentially they asked 9th and 11th graders, have you ever exchanged a sex act for anything of value? Because that is inherently trafficking, but when you define it in a different way, kids may be able to recognize it a little bit better. And so across the state, about 1.4% said yes. And that is about 5,000 kids. So 5,000 kids that are in schools every day have said that they have had a human trafficking experience. Obviously, they were able to confirm that LGBTQ youth, homeless youth, and system-involved youth responded yes at a higher rate. And then American Indians and Indigenous youth responded at the highest rate that they had experienced this type of victimization. So we know that's an underrepresentation because kids who were in juvenile justice, kids who were missing school because they were struggling with homelessness, were not in this survey. And you can scroll down. And then just a little bit more about our reach. So we are a national program. We have, like I said, been doing this work for about 10 years. We've trained over 700 facilitators. So those are youth serving professionals working with kids day in and day out in their own communities. They come from almost 300 different organizations and 30 different states. And then together we've been able to reach over 30,000 kids. And that's also an underrepresentation because we don't require facilitators to input data on all of it, just 2 groups a year. So we know it is more, but that's what we have data on. So with that, you can go to the next slide. I will leave you with, I am not a price. I am not a statistic. I am not a label. I am not a number, and my humanity cannot be reduced. That's kind of our little motto.
Mhm.
But I would love to answer any questions if we have time for it, or I'll definitely put my contact information so you can follow up with me if you have any questions. But thank you so much for having me.